So we officially hit 3-digit weather, so you know what that means. It's caldo season. Today I decided to make caldo de res, or casuela, however you call it. I do feel like I make this recipe very different compared to other recipes that I've seen, and you'll see why. But one thing is for sure, you always have to have your salsita de molcajete con arrocito, y claro que las tortillas Guerrero no pueden faltar. Now, before we get started, don't come for me in the comments saying that caldo goes with chamorro. I know that's how the traditional recipe is, but I personally hate that cut of meat and I don't consume it. So anytime a dish requires me to use that cut of meat, I just replace it with something else. Now, here's where things start to get a little bit different. I always cook my corn and my carrots in a different pot. I don't like to cook them in the same pot as my caldo. Don't ask me why. This is just something that I picked up along the way because I don't like this taste going into my caldo. So I like to get the trozo de diezmillo and I like to chop it up myself. I also use espinazo de res. I like to use un hueso blanco. That's how I ask for it at the carniceria. And then I like to use these little short ribs. Now we're going to rinse them real good and we're going to throw them in the pot that's already boiling with hot water. This is what I like to call the primer hervor for this part right here. I don't add anything, no seasonings, no salt, nothing. It's just the water with the meat. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to boil it until all of the espuma comes out. I know that majority of people just get a spoon and they just like to skim the top off. I personally do not like to do that. I grew up eating it this way and this is just the way that it's done in my household. So this is how I continue doing it. You obviously do not have to do this. You can just skim the top off with a spoon like everybody else does. But for me, no. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to dump out everything into this pot and then I'm going to rinse off the bones because I do not like those little brown pieces floating around in my caldo. And trust me, your caldo is not going to lose flavor by doing this. I used to have a tia that used to say, "Ay, don't do that. You're going to kill the flavor of the caldo." And she would eat 2 to 3 bowls every time I made it. So it does not take away anything, I promise. Okay, so here I'm filling up the pot again with hot water. And then I'm just going to rinse these off really quick. Alright, so for flavor, we're using 2 garlic heads. I usually use 1, but these were super tiny, so I'm going to go ahead and use 2. 2 cubitos de costilla jugosa de nor. That was mejorana, una media cucharada mejorana, media cebolla y obviamente sal. Ese sazonador de nor de costilla jugosa, my mom brings it to me all the way from TJ because I haven't had any luck finding it here in the US. So if Nor watches this video by any chance, please start selling it in the US as well because it is so good. So now I'm going to be adding the meat back into my pot. I know it may seem like a lot of water, but we're also going to be making rice with the broth, so it's okay for now. Okay, so my corn is halfway done, so I'm going to be adding the carrots into the same pot. And then I'm very simple with my ingredients that I put in my caldo. I just like to use carrot, potatoes, zucchini, cabbage, and cilantro, and that's it. If I don't add any other ingredients, it's because me or my family do not like them. So I just put the stuff in it that we're actually going to go through. The veggies that I'm throwing over there in the bag, that's because I'm going to be making rice. And I like to make my rice this particular way with all these vegetables when I make caldo de res. I have many rice recipes, and this is the one that I like to use with the caldo de res because this is the way that my mom made it. Here I'm chopping up some green onion. I'm also going to be using a head of garlic. Here's everything I'm going to be adding to my rice, finely chopped up. Alright, so here I'm going to stir fry my rice in the hot oil. And then the first thing that I like to add to it is the green onion so that it gets sauteed first with a little bit of salt. And then once it starts to brown up, I like to add in the rest of the veggies. And I only use about 1/4 cup of the tomato sauce. And I did use 2.5 cups of the broth from the caldo de res. And then we're going to cover this up. And I think the magic number for me is 18 minutes on low. That's how long I cook my rice for. And it comes out so beautiful. Okay, now while that's all cooking, I'm going to chop off the rest of my veggies, which is just the cabbage, and then I'm going to use a bunch of cilantro as well. Now, as you can see here, that draining out the first water did not make it any less of a caldo than it already is. I mean, look at all the grease that's on there already. So don't think that draining the first dirty water is going to take away the flavor from it. It absolutely will not. And I'm actually still going to skim off some of the fat because for me personally that's way too much, so I'm going to be getting rid of some of it. Once my meat is ready and tender, I like to take out the huesos. They already served their purpose and we don't eat them, so I am going to be giving them to my dogs so that they can enjoy it with their dinner. Once I do all that, I add in the already cooked corn and the carrots and the rest of the veggies. I like to add in the handful of cilantro that I chopped up, and then I like to cover this. And I have forgot about this, but I also like to add a can of garbanzo beans. I just drain them and add them. I would have done this before, probably when I added the calabazas, but I had forgot them in the grocery bag. So I'm doing it super last minute. So once it's in, we're going to give it a good stir, and then we're going to cover it up and then bring it to a boil. Once it boils, I'm going to turn off the stove and let it rest. I'm checking on my rice, making sure that all the water has evaporated, and it has. And I'm also going to be making my salsita de molcajete. I just charred up 2 tomatoes, 3 serranos, and 2 jalapenos, and I just mashed it up. And here's the final result, you guys. This is how I like to serve my plate. And if you're wondering why I made such a huge pot, is because the next day we like to make tacos with consomme. I like to take out all the meat and then I chop it up. And we have like a taco night. So it's like a 2-in-1 meal for us. But then again, we are a family of 6, so